Right, so we've been through the meat and veg of the AGM, and now it's time for the dessert. So short introduction to the Hugh and Jill Murray collection. Can all of those you on Zoom are sharing the screen? I hope you can all see that properly. Okay, so as I mentioned to some of you earlier, in 2023, Rita Friedman recovered a vast archive of images from 2 Seagate hard drives in the home of Hugh and Jill Murray. It has many duplicates with examples from Hugh Murray's talks and publications and numbers some 39,000 individual files. These have been bequeathed to YAYAS and are now in the Society's custody. It will take years to catalogue and source each image for copyright purposes. Here is a short introduction. There's Hugh himself in National Service, RAF, I think, around 1950. So there are family photos as well, and there are photos of Viner Street. So, John Charles Burrell, his collection, I've certainly never seen these photos before. It says photographer Minstergates. I looked him up this afternoon on Ancestry. John Charles Burrell was really a chemist, an apothecary, really, in Minstergates. He was actually on the census. He was number 7, so he may have moved to number 5, or the numbering may have changed. All right, so very good ones. These are very, very good quality images, each about 2 megabytes. And of course, this was very useful for the talk that Victoria Hopgood gave on James Pigott Pritchett. Is of course the Minster Deanery designed by Pritchett, and of course most of you spot where that was. You've got the Minster Library just beyond it, fantastic Tudor-esque building. Only stood 100 years, of course, demolished in 1934. But again, this is a very clear image of it, the first one. There are also images of it being demolished, which I've certainly never seen before, taken obviously in 1934-35 from various angles in Minster Yard. I'll put those in the long talk in January. We've only got time for a few from each photographer. There. Holy Trinity King's Square being demolished. We get so used to seeing images of King's Square before and after. Burrell took photos at all the stages of demolition. So the first one shows a few slates missing. The second one shows part of the chancel nave gone with a truck outside, Bedford. And of course, this one is the 4th and shows after the removal of the clock from the tower. If anyone knows where the clock went, I see David Poole isn't here, he'll know. He'll know. But it's interesting to see a part demolished shot. Do we know where the organ went, Max?
Yes, it went to
Upper Poppleton.
And then it went from there to New Year's.
Right. Right. So for those of you on Zoom, the organ ended up in Upper Poppleton, where it's been since the 50s.
It then went to New Year's.
New Yearswick, right, New Yearswick. Yeah. So thanks to Max for that. Speaking of demolition, I've cropped it a bit because it's got his scroll underneath saying Gudrun Gate and his very frail handwriting. And of course, we're so used to seeing photos of the demolition of those medieval buildings on Gudrun Gate, but Burrell has gone a few paces further back. So you can actually see it from the Cross Keys. And by the way, on the left, that's the Cross Keys, not the one you know now. Of course, the pub was rebuilt to accommodate the new corner, entirely rebuilt. And of course, the name of the top was Stevenson. The Stevenson family ran the pub for many years, right after the rebuild as well, right until the 1920s. So again, you've got that rare shot. It's so atmospheric. You've got obviously ladies milling around the site of the medieval buildings, scaffolding propping up the new gable end of what is now the National Trust shop. And obviously timbers beginning to be replaced. The props are partly in place, and clearly there is a little delivery van coming out of College Street. Full of atmosphere. This is typical of Burrell's photos. There are about 30 or 40 of these. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're very small.
They are very small properties. But again, you see that the gap where Deangate now is, and of course the Cross Keys was also entirely rebuilt. He's also got a distant photo of that being rebuilt from further down Gudrun Gate, but not here. And again, the shot of Holy Trinity King's Square from St Andrew Gate. And of course, most of you on the left will recognise the rifle drill hall. It's a pity Keith Knight's not here, the architect, because I noticed on the left there, it's got rather decorated finials on the top of the balustrade on the left there, on the top of that building. Many of you will have known it recently as the back entrance of Barnett's, but how narrow the street looked. In the distance, you've got the rebuilt 1861 church tower of Holy Trinity, King's Square. So you look out at St Andrew Gate now, you've got nothing but kiosks and buskers and noise. And here is captured this wonderful view. So, who next? Dick Reed. It's nice that Buff's here tonight because when I thought the Dick Reed collection, well, she'll know that she knew, she's married to him, she knew him well, but Dick's collection seems to be pool photographs from the Yorkshire Post and the Press Association. They are all very good quality 2x2 negatives. And of course, many of them aren't cropped. So he must have got hold of the originals somehow. He must have had an interest or a friend on the newspaper. So that's how he's got hold of those. The archivist thanks Buff. Yes. So for those of you on Zoom, Buff Reader said that Dick was the archivist at the Merchant Adventurers. So it's most likely that they came from the Merchant Adventurers. So take this, circa 1949, obviously the classic view of the Minster with Lendal Bridge. But of course, there's little details like the lampposts are still picked out in black and white paint from World War II. I rather like it myself, being a transport enthusiast, in that the lampposts are still the tramway conductor posts, just repurposed as lampposts. And again, the grain and the quality of the image is so good, it's possible to zoom right in and see the sign saying Station Road. Finally clinched that one. The number of people who mistakenly call it Station Rise. Station Rise is the bit at the top. But again, you can see the lamppost and lots of accoutrements like the old no entry signs on the arch that was enlarged in the 1960s. So that obviously is a vestige of the trams. A little bit. Amongst the Dick's collection are lots around Piccadilly, showing the newly built Unwin's Ford dealership. Now, I'm only 63, but I reckon that those are Ford Populars in the window there. Ford Pops, I think, little sit-up and beg cars. So again, built as a Ford dealership. So that is just about when it was still new, the building. So there are several of Piccadilly. And again, on a short presentation like this, I can only give you a little taste of some of the images. Now, when I first saw this one, I did scratch my head for a wee while, being only a child, born in 1961. Right, so just beyond the lady with the two girls in the distance, that's the gap where the judge's lodging is. You are looking at the top of Lendal. Who would have known there was even a branch of Marshall and Snellgrove in York? Leeds, yes, but York, we had a branch of Marshall and Snellgrove. There are at least 3 photos of this. There's one taken from the passageway next to the former Methodist chapel, and there are another one at an angle, but this is the best one of the 3, I think, because it shows Marshall and Snellgrove. And on the left, of course, the Prudential Office, which formerly stood in the corner of Museum Street. So that is a 1949 shot of Lendal. In the distance with the square bay window, that was the York Hotel. It's our hotels expert, Ian Tempest, is quite fond of that. It was a temperance hotel for many years. And again, that crops up occasionally in images and leaves people scratching their heads because, as you're aware, that part of Lendal has changed completely in the last 50 years. First with, of course, the archaeological dig when these were demolished, and then, of course, with the new brick buildings. Went up in the 80s. So Dick's collection is about 65, 70 images. So obviously I can't do them all here. Right. There are a series showing the opening of the old railway museum. Now, this one required a bit of detective work, but luckily, being a bit of a railway enthusiast and like Nick Bilby, I have a lot of railway friends. And one of them is a member of the LNER Society. And he said, oh, well, I've got that one in a book. It's in a book by Cecil Allen in 1966 on the LNER. So they haven't given the names of the people who were there. So you've got Miles Beevor, who was a chairman of the LNER, and you've got Mr. C.M. Jenkins Jones is the one pointing at the engines. Now, Mr. Jenkins Jones was the general manager of the York area from 1938 until about 47. And of course, he was responsible for York Station and the clear up the day after the Baedeker raid, Mr. C.M. Jenkins Jones. So now I have a picture of him. And for you railway enthusiasts, of course, the other two gentlemen gave their names to A4 Pacifics, as we all know. So there are at least 12 images of the reopening of the Railway Museum in 1947. Thank goodness for the newspaper archive. So again, there's shots of the outside with the ribbon being cut. There's several shots of the interior. For railway enthusiasts, City of Truro was there in 1947, of course, now out in Swindon. Another bit of a puzzler. There are 8 images of a gentleman riding a rickety old car, obviously towards the Castle Museum. So there are schoolboys following him right around Clifford's Tower, around what you call the Eye of York. Luckily, on the edge of one of the negatives is a name, Mr. Tye, T-Y-E. So a quick search on the newspaper archive, and it said, Mr. Tye, garage owner of Hull Road, donated a steam car to the Castle Museum, registration number DN8. Now, I had a chat with the archivist at the Castle Museum, and he actually rang me straight back and said, we're so thrilled. The only image we have is the one on the right, the newsprint version. So we now hold the original. So it's a Serpollet steam car, which had to be pushed into the Castle Museum. I wonder if it's still in their collection. It should be. And these are the images of when it was delivered in 1949. He drove it from Hull Road under steam power. Hence the big crowds of excited people. The passenger is the Lord Mayor, John Bowes Morrell, the then Lord Mayor. So again, there are about 8 or 9 of these on this one. It's Dick's collection of the Merchant Adventurers Hall are based a lot around events, Chambers of Commerce, the Gym Crack Club. But I thought I'd attract these because they're eye-catching. Okay. Florence Wright. I didn't know she had a camera. Her photos are all taken around 1969 to about 1973. So they're the York from my childhood, if I'm honest. So they're instantly recognizable, but little detail, it bears looking at. So yeah, about 1970, looking from the end of St. Saviour Gate to Whitmer Gate. And what made me chuckle is counting 8 cars parked in the parking bay. Mini, Riley Elf, looks like a Humber Sceptre there, and a Hillman Imp. You can now fit 4 cars in there. Now, yes, I know the bay is smaller, but the cars were physically smaller in those days. So there's 8 cars parked in Whitmer Gate. A little point of detail to the modern layout of the street. In the alleyway that cuts through to Shambles, which now has 1.5 Whitmer Gate, that was still 23.5 Shambles. Because if you look in the distance, there is a house window and a door rather than the shop window where there is now. So obviously pre-alteration. So again, it's just a few moments ago in historical terms, but nevertheless important. The demolition of Union Terrace. One remembers the Inner Ring Road plan in 1971, and it would have involved wholesale demolition of swathes of York, which included the Marygate Estate, now Marygate Car Park, and Union Terrace, which was compulsorily purchased in 1973. And of course, the Ring Road was never built. Supposed to be cutting through Bootham Park and through here to join the bottom of Gillygate. But obviously, Florence Wright went out with her camera and captured the demolition. Speaking of Union Terrace, there we go. Poor old Nick just said it. I didn't think that anyone had photographed Union Terrace, or there were any photos of Union Terrace. Well, there is now, thanks to Florence's collection. She obviously had the presence of mind to go with the camera down Union Terrace. So all of that is now demolished. It's a car park. So behind you is the stub of Union Terrace that goes up behind the old vets towards the former chapel. Again, amazing, good luck to have photos like this in our collection. Bedern School. Now, I was aware of this. I've seen the odd photo of it. Florence's is rather useful because it captures the buildings just to the other end of it, leading towards the bit of Bedden we know now. And clearly these have all been demolished. Indeed, there are some photos taken in the later 70s by I know not who, because they're identified but not who the photographer was, that show it post-demolition when the site was cleared ready for the archaeology. But it rather brought a smile to my face that there's a photo of this spot after the demolition, and there is a brick wall with cars parked against it. But the top of the brick wall is still the windowsills of all these windows of this skull. They're still forming part of the wall. So that is Bedern's skull. Now, there's one in the collection which was labelled housebacks, ? Housebacks. And I must admit, this took me at least 45 minutes to work out this one. It was a bit of a job. I had a hunch, because if you look at if you're at the back, if you look at the end of each gable of the roof, there's clearly some stone decoration on the other side with a little decorative finial. And I thought, I've got a hunch. I think that's the back of Bedden's skull. So in my files, I have, it's not part of the collection, but in my personal file, I have a Yorkshire Post photo from 1959, an aerial shot, where the red arrow is. It's the back of Bedden's skull. Yeah, I go back, yeah. So now I think on the original I gave to Sandra and Anna, the archivist, I've now amended it to say back of Bedden's skull, so future. So if I get run over by a bus tomorrow, we'll at least know that's the back of Bedden's skull. So again, the whole site was levelled in the 1970s, ready for a long series of archaeological digs from 73 to 74, I think, Dave, wasn't it? 81, right. So that is just before the site was cleared. Again, Florence Wright had the prescience to go down with her little camera. So, Sid Heppel, former keeper of the Evelyn collection, doyen of the York Voluntary Guides. And of course, I think Ivan, he may have been a Minster guide as well at one point, I think. So Sid, I think Sid was even on an episode of, This Is Your Life. Not with Eamon Andrews, but with Michael Aspel. Because I remember Sid was born in Skelligate. I was screaming Skeldergate at the television. So Sids are all generally taken around the late 60s, early 70s. So there, for instance, he's taken a photo from the churchyard at St Mary Bishop's Senior, looking down at the archaeological dig on Skeldergate, on the site of John Carr's house. To orientate yourselves, of course, that's Skeldergate beyond the caravan, with the warehouses long since demolished. You can see across the ooze, the court building, and just beyond the tree to the left, out of shot, is the former Albion Chapel, about which more in a moment. So these are by Sid. I had a laugh with one or two of you before we started that some of Sid's photos are clearly library photos. I haven't put them in this presentation. There's a very good one of the Dutch gabled warehouse, and we know it's a York Library photo because it still has the embossed stamp in the top right-hand corner, property of York Library. So yes, again, it's some of these we have to search through all these years. So again, welcome to the York of my childhood. That is the Albion Chapel on Skeldergate. For those of you unfamiliar with this, just off to the right of the picture is the Cock and Bottle pub. So of course, it's where those flats are now with the garages on the ground floor. And beyond it to the left used to stand the former home of John Carr. So I've seen many shots of the front of Albion Chapel, demolished in the late 70s. Amazing. It's built in 1814, and of course, TF Wood and Company used it as a timber store. In fact, Mary Wood bought the chapel in 1855 from the Methodists when they built their new chapel on Priory Street. So it was in the property of the Wood family until the 1950s when it was sold to the North Eastern Electricity Board. The back of the chapel. Now, I've had a chat with one or two before we started. Sid's original is flipped. So when I first saw it, the large building with the wooden shed was on the right-hand side of the picture. Well, that's not possible because the roof on the left is the Cock and Bottle. So clearly I flipped it around. A lot of Sid's pictures somehow in the copying process been flipped horizontally. So we'd have to watch out for that. Again, the back of the Albion Chapel. Pardon? No. Methodist, not primitive Methodists. Yeah, Methodists. No, the ones who because the Primitives had the chapel on inside Victoria Bar, the one in Murray Lane. John Nelson originally, I think, set this one up. There's a huge write-up in RCHM Volume 3 on this chapel. Again, went out of use in 1855 and bought by the Wood family. Indeed, there's a very useful photo, again, in the Waifs and Strays in this collection, looking down Skeldergate, showing the old Plumber's Arms. And in the background, affixed to this chapel, is a sign saying, T.F. Wood and Company, Register's Office. Now, bit tricky, this one. I'm pretty certain you're looking at John Carr's former house next door to the Albion Chapel. It was very badly damaged, and in 1945, in spite of the protestations of the Georgian Society, it was demolished. John Carr's home. I don't think they'd get away with that now. So it was demolished in 1945. So Sid has managed to capture a shot of it just pre-demolition. Clearly the corner property has gone. There are also shots inside the building, looking through a lovely arched window, and they said possibly Skeldergate. Oh yes, it is, because in the door in the background it says T.F. Wood and Company. So there's a lovely atmospheric shot looking through. I'll put that on the longer presentation. Odds and ends. These are the really intriguing ones. 1957, clearly pavement. And of course, you've got the former Roundtree shop, Conings, and then of course, Herbert House, the Golden Fleece. Note the Golden Fleece's ground floor is a huge recess, not a window as it is now. But isn't it intriguing to see a colour photo from 1957? And what surprised me was the former pub on the left, which was the Pavement Vaults. I've only ever seen black and white images. It didn't occur to me that it was picked out in blue on the woodwork. So formerly Cameron's. It was actually built in the 1890s for John J. Hunt. And there are photos in the collection of the previous building on that spot. It's a treasure trove. If you look through it, you'll be up till 4 in the morning looking at the images. So that's narrowed it down to about 25 images just to make a bit of sense. And here's one for Ian Drake. For years, we're working with Thomas Handstock's great photographic collection. His shop was always recorded as 11 Clarence Street. And when Ian was doing the book York 100 years ago with Paul Crystal, have we got any pictures of 11 Clarence Street? And we looked high and low. Oh, somebody must have taken one. Yes, they did. We have it. That is 11 Clarence Street. So you're looking at Union Terrace car park. So just off to your left is the bit that's now still built. So you can see the corner. I can tell you the sign does say Union Terrace. And just to gild the lily, the bay window is full of photographic prints and portraits. That is Thomas Handstock's house and shop at last, 11 Clarence Street. So we now have an image of that. Again, there are lots of stray photos. There are all Hugh's photos from his book on York pubs, all the original photos. There are all his photos of urinals, as in Where to Go in York, his famous publication. There is a folder that's called Hugh's Talks. So there are Handstock images in there. There are all sorts of images. There are endless folders. I've just got a tiny amount just to give you a taste. And again, the demolition of the Queen's Head on Fossgate. Someone had the presence of mind with a knack for colour camera to take a photo of the gap before the new shops were built in the 1960s. So that's circa 1964, looking obviously at the side of the Merchant Adventurers Hall. I like the way the little red sign says road blocked. Well, you don't say, yeah. Health and safety gone mad, you see. People obviously strain there if you don't put a sign. But yes, you've got the bottom of Fossgate and a view that is now impossible. There is a folder marked tramways and buses, and of course, a lot of the photos that many have seen before, trams outside the railway station, but very few showing trams on Fulford Road. Indeed, I sent this one to Chris Ranger at Fishergate, Fulford and Heslington Local History Group, and he was quite excited. He emailed me straight back, wow, I've not seen these before. And there are 2 of St Oswald's Church that he's not seen before. So clearly you've got Fulford Road. You're obviously standing on the top deck of a tram heading back towards the depot, and you're looking at a tram heading into the city. Not much has changed. Obviously, the wall on the left is gone, and of course, they're now building on the lane, the Hospital Fields Lane at the side there. Ordnance Lane, I'm sorry, Ordnance Lane. But again, the infrastructure, the close-up there for you. I mean, I've certainly in all my years never seen these images. There is a photo of Alderman William Henry Shaw, the Lord Mayor, driving the last tram into the depot at the close of play on the last day. And you've got the keep of Infant Barracks behind you and the tram track curving in front of you. So you're looking out to Fulford Road. I'll put that one in January. Again, pictures of the Marygate estate under construction. So this must be October 1892, when there was a very bad flood. And October 1892 is clearly before the estate was finished, because it's under construction and it's underwater. And we know this was swept away in 1973. So these houses were there for barely, 80 years before they were demolished. That's now Marygate Car Park, of course, and clearly Scarborough Bridge in the foreground. You know, it's already advertisements appearing. What would Dr. Even have made of that, one wonders? Now, there's a small folder called Railway Walk, 1969. And again, I scratched my head for a moment, but I thought, hang on a minute. Railway Walk, that's the footpath still there today along the side of the railway. I don't know how it got into Hugh's collection. It's a series of 5 colour photos of all the ghost signs on the ends of the terraces of Heatherton Street, Frederick Street, Clayton Street. I've put all 5 on for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The entire ends of all the terraces, which have now gone. I don't know how you got hold of them. These were taken in 1969, just before this estate was demolished. So for collectors of ghost signs, it's a real treat to actually just rattle through them and see the various advertisements on the house ends. So we do have a black and white image of that estate in the Handstock collection, but we've now got it in colour. And of course, Hugh took photos in his lifetime, as did Jill. There is a folder called JWK Loose Photos, John Ward Knowles Loose Photos. So lots of late Victorian, early 20th century photographs from John Ward Knowles' collection. It's just a stray collection of them. So some duplicates we've seen before, but some's, I mean, there are ones around shambles that I've certainly not seen before, and unusual ones of buildings we've not seen for a while. 1 or 2 puzzles still to resolve, but again, I'll say that for the January talk, because I don't want to keep us too late. So again, a picture which ironically is now historic, isn't it? Queen Street Bridge and the Railway Institute with the little girder bridge connecting the entrance, which is now, of course, gone. They're just waiting till the piling's done before they take the last bit of the road down. So, amongst the folders is a file entitled Viner Street, which was Hugh and Jill's house. They photographed every room, every bit of the house, every single room. But of course, one of the images, and I'm just going to finish on this one, is a photo of Hugh's library mantelpiece in Viner Street. What's that behind the stuffed mouse on the mantelpiece? Why, it's the Society's Great Seal. It was on Hugh's mantelpiece all these years, behind a rather nice carriage clock. And I think that's a good place to end for now, just to give you a taster, half an hour. So I'll give a much longer one with some other photos in January. Keep watching the our website, and we'll present it again in January. So thank you, everyone. I imagine you got 1,000 questions, so if anybody has any questions, do fire away. I'll answer them if I can. Thanks. Yeah. Yep. Thanks, everyone. Any questions on the chat, Graham? Nope. Right. So thank you, everyone. Our next lecture will be in October, of course, and we'll let you know what the subject is. And of course, have an enjoyable summer, everyone. Thank you. Have a safe journey home. Cheers.